advising entrepreneurs, I basically tell them, the characterization I use based on the presentation I do is called, you got to find your Miles Davis. In other words, it's what's most purely you inside and let that out. And be vulnerable in that process because, the people who are the right people to be attracted to you are going to bond with you for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of individuals are being something that they're not in order to impress people that they don't want to hang out with anyway.
Right.
And I've played that game before, and I did not find it enjoyable. And at some point you say, what do I really want my life to be like? Because it does come down to who. Yeah. Who do I really want to spend my time with? And if I got $10 million or I got $100 million, would I want to spend time with these people? And if the answer is no, we might need to make some adjustments on our life decisions.
No question. And you are who you hang out with, so who are you around? And that's really what you're aspiring to. I remember some years ago I had done some programs with Deepak Chopra, and one of the things he said to me that I just thought was kind of profound in the realm of what you're saying is that he said, we buy things we don't want with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Right. And it's funny because of how true it really, really was. So I love that you got up on a platform and basically just had no mask on and just said, here's who I am and here's what we're going to talk about.
I think often we're looking for where the strategy or the formula is that'll create a certain result. And so we become a reflection of what we think will produce a certain result. And what I've discovered is that I've got a monopoly on one thing, and it's being Ryan Daniel Moran. And I'm the best in the world at being Ryan Daniel Moran. I suck at a lot of things, but I'm really good, the best in the world at being Ryan Daniel Moran. It also happens to be when I'm happiest.
Yeah.
And so the more that I can be myself, and apologetically so, the happier I am, and the more I attract people that I want to work with, which allows me to charge higher prices. And which allows me to be more in my zone of genius, which allows me to give better results for my clients and my customers, which allows me to spread a message deeper and wider and allows me to charge higher speaking fees. And all of a sudden I make more money the more true I am and the more honest I am to myself and to other people. So if nothing else, I got a monopoly on being myself. And we all do. You're the best in the world at it. So the more you can be that, the more money you end up making.
So you were earlier talking about a blueprint and saying, there was kind of like, I think kind of the stage one of the blueprint. Is there some additional dimensions to that you can share? Yeah,
so when we've got some sort of a distribution method, and that would be 1,000 people following us, it might be the ability to put a product on Amazon.com, because now with Amazon's distribution centers, literally anybody can have a seller account on Amazon. You can Google Amazon FBA account. You can set one up for like $40, and you can sell products on Amazon.com. You could have a email list that is responsive, which means you can sell physical products or webinars or consulting. Once you have the distribution mechanism, it takes 3 to 5 products selling 30 units a day at a $30 price point to have about $1 million business. So that's the first stage of it, is having the one product that you release to enough customers where you say, I think I might have something here. And that just requires you asking your audience, would you want something? Just like my doctor friend who said, I'm thinking about doing this. I need 100 people to fund the whole thing. Would anybody want it? And he had 100 people say yes. And so he didn't go to a manufacturer and develop this whole big wonky wonk system. He said, would anybody want it? All right, are you willing to pay for it? And they paid for it. Right. And as a result, he was able to fund the development of that business.
And that's win then play, rather than spend a bunch of money and find out if you got something.
Right. Yeah. And you can get your mistakes out of the way with people who wanted to be first in line.
Right.
So that's step one. That is like stage 1A. And then when you have something, it's regularly distributing it to the rest of the audience. You had 100 people go through it. Now can we release it to more people? And when that snowball starts to roll, we can roll out product number 2, product number 3. and on until we have $1 million business or more. When we have a few products working, it's our job to start going out to other audiences. And that's when people know you enough for you to be able to have some sort of authority to get on other people's podcasts, for you to be communicating to other blogs and on other YouTube channels. That's when influencers start to pick you up. It's when you bring on other team members who have other skill sets. And that's when you can really start to scale something beyond $1 million if that's what you want to do.
Really interesting. For me, the way that you've organized this in your thinking and presentation is demystifying a lot of it and also putting it into bite-sized chews, right? So that it's like, this is the chunk, you get to this level, then this is the next one. And you're also, I think, mitigating risk because you're not spending a ton of time and money until there's certain milestones that are checked off. So it looks like far-sight simplicity. And it seems simple now, but there had to be a complexity arc and a lot of learning to get you there, I'm assuming.
Well, what I think this does is it gives people permission to get started.
Yeah.
Because it removes all of the heaviness and the risk around trying to eat the whole elephant in one bite.
Right.
And if we realize that we can test things before we get too involved, that gives us permission to say, all right, I'll experiment. And we realize that the downside when we're just playing for a while is very low. Whereas most people, and I'd say 80% of my work with entrepreneurs is getting them to stop overthinking it.
Right.
And that is that they're here, they want to go here, and they say, how do I get here?
Right.
And what I tell them is, we got to get to the first step. Like that's what we have. This is the only thing we need. We cannot get here without getting here first. And so all I need to do is get them to take that first step, and then the second step, and the third step. Whereas most people think about the marathon the whole time. And we can run a marathon, but we can't run a marathon without taking the first step. And so when we distill down what it would take to get some skin in the game, all of a sudden it doesn't seem so scary.
Any other considerations for people who are looking to create side hustle? You know, they basically say, I've got a decent career, I want to create more, I'm willing to give time, money, energy to be able to create something more. Any other cases about people who've done this that you think might be valuable, or other ideas beyond what you've already stated that might?
Well, one thing that I'll say is I would not recommend getting into anything unless you are willing to commit to it for a year. I take a rule that I don't evaluate any result until I've been into something for a year. And sometimes it's simply putting out enough videos knowing I want to see what will hit, but I won't know for a year. And I might test doing 30 videos over 30 days and decide I don't enjoy it. But I still won't evaluate the result until I've had a year to see if one of them caught on. And I have had that happen where a video was a dud, and then 6 months later, someone picked it up and it became a viral sensation. I have had that happen. And we won't know that for a year. I've had that happen with podcasts. I've had it happen with products where you were too early on a product and then a year later all these customers flooded in. So I'm not saying you have to work at something for a year, but we have to wait at least a year to be able to evaluate any result as possible at all. So if you're not willing to wait a year for the result, you probably don't want to be in that thing. And that allows us to say no to a lot of things that we probably won't enjoy doing. And so if you're willing to wait a year, then we can backtrack, okay, what are we going to enjoy doing for the next year? Or how can we orchestrate our lives so that we're in a position to enjoy it for the next year while we evaluate the result?
Well, there's a ton of wisdom in that, because I think that's another thing when you're coming to this new, what expectations should I have? So many of the things that are sold out there to teach you how to do this, it's like, lack of a better phrase, get rich quick, or overnight results, et cetera, testimonials. But really, there has to be some sort of a timeline. And one of the things, talk about a lot of experience. Perseverance used to be one of my core values. So on the other side of that equation, now I say perseverance is a virtue until it isn't. I have sunk millions of dollars into ventures over a period of protracted time, pushing a rock up the hill because I don't give up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, after I've done that a couple of times, I'm realizing now my value is, how do I fail fast? How do I find out as compared to torture myself for a long period of time? So on the one side, you're saying you can't really measure results for a year, which I think is really good wisdom. And then the other side, at what point do you find out maybe this is not the right message or the right message to market match?
when you stop enjoying it. I have a mentor named Travis who reminds me to ask myself the question, what would I be doing even if I was failing my ass off? I heard the story once of Jerry Seinfeld, who is either a billionaire or close to being a billionaire.
Right.
A comedian that's a billionaire. That doesn't happen.
Right.
He says that when he first started, if he could just pay for dinner based on what he made from comedy, that was like amazing to him. And it made me think, what's that thing that I'd be stoked if I just got enough to pay for dinner?
Right.
And I don't have that thing. I don't have that passion. I'm more of a feeling I pursue. I have a way of life that I like to pursue. I pursue excitement. So how do I get paid to live in that place?
Right.
And so what that requires me to do is anything that doesn't move me closer to that, I say no to. And I went to my team recently and I said, all right, the one thing in our business, if it's built around me, if it requires me, then I've got to be pursuing excitement. So from now forward, the primary question, if we're going to pursue anything new, is does this make me excited or does this not make me excited? And if it does, we'll say yes to it. And if we go, well, it will make a lot of money and money's exciting. No, because I know I'm going to burn out on that.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's not a good financial move in the short run. It just means that I'm going to end up burning out, which means I'm probably not going to create what I want to create to get the result that I want evaluating a year back. There's two things that I learned early in life from my Uncle Tom that he shared with me that became very good business and investing advice. The first was spend your money on things that people can't take away from you. At the time I was learning guitar, and he said they can take your guitar, but they can't take away your knowledge of how to play guitar.
Right.
And experiences, connections, relationships, these are all things that no one can take away from you. And when you're starting as an entrepreneur, when you're starting a new business, when you're going a new direction in life, spend your time and your money on things that people can't take away from you.
Great
We
advice.
have to have some sort of a skill set. We have to have some sort of value that we're creating in the world. So when you're a new entrepreneur, when you're new to the game, when you're pursuing a new life, the first thing is to invest in things that people can't take away from you. That's skill sets, it's education, it's relationships, and those are the things that are going to have the highest ROI in your business when you are first starting out. And then the other thing that Uncle Tom taught me was, as an investor, the thing that I look for, and he was looking for and passed on to me, was 1% per month. That's our target range for a profitable investment. We're not looking for home runs. We're looking for lots and lots of singles and doubles, 1% per month. If that's a $100,000 investment, it means I want to be making at least $1,000 a month from that $100,000. And if I can't get that at some point in the future, I'm going to wait for the right opportunity where I will be able to get that. If what I'm looking for is cash flow, then 1% per month is my target. That's where I evaluate my deals.
So all great wisdom and I think very actionable, as far as what you're communicating here. It's not just abstract, it's really actionable stuff. So I really appreciate you sharing this with me. Any final thoughts in these realms before we tie up?
Ultimately, we don't get rich trading our hours for dollars.
Right.
We get rich producing value in the marketplace. It's why capitalism is the most beautiful system in the world. It's the only system through which we're actually compensated for the value that we bring. And I'm so saddened by the mindset of waiting for somebody else to tell us what we're worth in the form of minimum wage, or hoping that somebody else does something in order to help us get ahead.
Right.
Like, if you want to get ahead, you bring new value to the marketplace. You learn new skills, you develop new relationships, and you bring those to the company that you work in or to customers and clients who are willing to pay you more than what you're getting at your job.
Right.
It is always about what other people are willing to pay. And something that has really helped me recently is shifting from thinking about what can I get out of this to how can I create and how can I give.
Yeah.
And not only how can I give, but who can I give to? Because sometimes the problem and the thing that's holding us back is not you and it's not your product, it's just the person that you're marketing it to.
Right.
So an idea or a service, the same one can be worthless to one person and worth $10,000 a month to somebody else. Same person. So sometimes just changing the person that you are speaking to is enough to go from failure to millionaire just because of who values it. Value is subjective. Value is person to person. And when we're not getting the results that we want, it just means that we need to adjust our positioning in the marketplace, either what we're providing or who we're providing it to. And these things are always changeable. They're always hackable. None of it is stagnant. It's constantly changing. It forces us to be on our edge, be on our best, to be always moving forward and growing. And so this free society that we all want literally forces us to be better every day.